We're live. Welcome back, everybody. It's House Energy and Digital Infrastructure on April 1st. And we are continuing to take testimony on S-138. And we're here with the Vermont Bankers Association. I'm Rep. Kathleen James from Manchester.
Richard Bailey, Lamona 2. Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bend. Michael Southwood, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Aaron Torrey, Washington 2.
Graham Kleppner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
I met your wife recently.
Under what circumstances, sir?
The safety team,
Yes, indeed.
she came and presented at our Women in Leadership Conference.
Oh, wonderful.
Did a great job.
Oh, very nice. That's great to hear.
Awesome. And in the room.
I'm Nick Jarrett with Downs Racklemore for Sharon.
I'm Bella Scholl. I'm a legislative intern this session.
Great. And who are you interning for?
Senator Chittenden.
Super. Great. All right. For the record.
For the record, Chris Delia, President, Vermont Bankers Association. Thank you for the opportunity to come in and visit with you. I picked up a little bit of your hearings that you've had over the last couple of days. I'll just give you our thoughts on the bill, and then I think you folks have a number of questions that I'd be more than happy to answer. I should also let you know that I was here when we did the residential PACE program, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have related to that. So very familiar with the bill when it was introduced last year by Senator Chittenden. And during the summer and fall, did some research on what other states have done. I think about 38 states have passed similar legislation. And I think every state has adopted the language that I'll key in on in this bill. But obviously you're familiar with the goal, and that's to try and create an additional resource, financial resource for commercial projects to access in order to implement energy efficiency improvements, resiliency, climate resiliency, et cetera. What's unique about PACE, both the residential and the commercial, is it uses the property tax mechanism for repayment of the debt. So instead of having a conventional loan where you go to the bank, they approve the loan, you take out the money, and you're making monthly payments back to the bank. In this case, you're going to who's ever going to administer the program for you or the municipalities. They will go through an application process. As soon as they get approval, they will receive the funds, and then the repayment mechanism is using the property tax collection system, if you will. So in the bill, you see language that speaks to lien priority and a PACE assessment being treated just like property taxes. And again, that's for collection purposes. The lien, even though you're underwriting the commercial entity, the lien runs with the property. So I may own the property for 5 years and I decide to sell it. That lien is going to run with that property to the new buyer, assuming they're willing to accept that lien. Some may not. Some may say, hey, Chris, you got to get rid of that before I'm going to be willing to buy that. And you have to go through the process to figure out how you're going to pay that off if you want to sell it to that individual. So that's another unique aspect of the PACE program. What we were interested in, as you can imagine, we're out in the marketplace making commercial loans. We're looking at the full depth and breadth of the borrower. We have everything that we need to know in order to determine whether we should make that loan or not. Credit risk, taxes, financial statements, business plans, whatever it may be. So we understand completely where the circumstances around that borrower. You can imagine the risk that would be created if all of a sudden that borrower had the ability to go get a loan, and it could be sizable because some of these projects could be quite sizable. And all of a sudden, the financial institution learns that that loan is now in a priority position in front of theirs. That is without question not going to happen from my commercial lender's perspective. It was very clear that if a municipality created a PACE district without the language in the bill, which I'll go to in a second, They would never do a commercial loan in that district because it would be too risky for the institution. So what you see in this bill on page 5, line 8, is, I believe, in every other case bill that exists in the states across the country. And that is the language around consent. How will that work? Again, I'm the borrower, Christelia. I have a loan with XYZ Bank. I'm in a PACE district now. My municipality offers that, and I want to take advantage of the financing option. I would go to XYZ Bank and say, this is what I'm looking at doing. And XYZ Bank has sole authority to say yes or no. XYZ Bank, again, is looking at the full depth and breadth of my circumstances for borrowing. Now, it could play out a number of different ways. XYZ Bank could say, well, we could do that for you. If you want, let's sit down and talk about what loan options they must do. XYZ Bank could say, no, you have $1 million loan out with us. The risk is too high. We're not going to consent to that. And then I could not go get a PACE assessment loan. Or I may only owe $20,000. I may owe $50,000. And the risk for the institution is so much less at that de minimis amount that they may say, yeah, fine. We see no problem with you going and getting a PACE assessment, and we'll step back in a secondary position. I think you heard from Vida today, Joan Goldstein. We do a lot with the Vermont Economic Development Authority. And in our partnership with them, we take a first position, they take a second position. Without this language, they would drop to third, which is, again, a high risk for them. So we worked with the Senate Natural Resources Committee to get this language in the bill. It was acceptable to us coming out of the Senate. And even though there's this lien priority language that's in there, for us, it is mitigated by us having that consent language in there. So we do not see a problem supporting this bill.
So is this paragraph just referred to the first mortgage holder and the second mortgage holder doesn't? They don't have to get consent of the second mortgage?
No, well, I'm going to just pull it up. Sorry, I have the language right in front of me.
Oh, it says each holder.
Each holder, so
Mortgage
you,
holder.
you could have,
I got it.
yeah,
It says each.
yeah.
Okay.
We have questions? Thoughts on the third-party administrator?
This is the hot potato that nobody wants to take on right now. The thoughts really focused on the language that got changed in the Senate because the initial drafts were very prescriptive on who they wanted to have in there. And then the language morphed to entity to be a bit more broad. I think, again, you probably have heard from a few administrators that are out there in the broader marketplace that could come in and work with municipalities. I think, again, Vita's probably explained their issues at this point. I know you may consider another entity out there, the Economic Progress Council. They don't administer a loan program. They administer tax credits as well as access to the growth in the property taxes under TIFs and CHIP. So even though they're familiar with an application process, it's a very different underwriting process that you would do as an administrator for this program. I will just say, I think finding an administrator makes sense on behalf of the municipalities to get one of these up and running, to administer it. The financial liability, if a municipality were to create a loan pool and put that out there, is something I don't think many municipalities will want to do. So having that third party administrator makes a lot of sense.
Okay. All right, yeah,
So I'm concerned about the municipality being ended up holding the bag for all of this.
Yep.
And I'm looking at an improvement loan and just throw out a number, $500,000
Sure.
or whatever the 20-year thing.
Yep.
It's either a single payment property tax payment or a 2-payment property tax payment.
Yep.
That can be quite
Four. Burlington is 4.
well, Hyde Park because our taxes are so high, the easy payment.
Sure.
But that's gonna be a sizable loan payment at a one-time shot, right?
Well, the terms that I think the bill allows for is over the life of the project, I think possibly up to 30 years.
Right.
So you're gonna amortize it over that period. So, but to your point, that payment is going to be one larger sum versus spread out over 12 months.
Right.
Yes. I think to address the municipality concern, and again, a lot of discussion in the Senate about this, the way the bill contemplates is that the municipality would not take on the financial liabilities or administration of the program. And I think that's important because if they were to do that, let's say a municipality goes to the bond bank and they take out a $5 million bond and they want to set up a PACE program, that municipality and all the taxpayers in that municipality are responsible for repaying that debt. This is different because you've got a third party financial entity that is putting up the money, not the municipality. That's at least what's contemplated in the bill.
Okay. But what happens in if the property owner just decides to walk away from the
Sure.
property and, town's not collecting its property tax, and now
Yep.
it's got a loan it's gonna collect too.
So the loan stays with the property. The creditor, if you will, which is the financial entity making the funds available for the PACE, is the one that needs to get repaid. Again, you're only using the property tax collection system as the mechanism for repayment. So ultimately, again, I'll use myself as an example. If I default on the loan, Chris Delia owns ABC entity that put the money up for the loan. How do they collect on that? If it's just the assessment, they could go through theoretically a foreclosure process. They could try and collect the debt by seizing the assets that I've got for that business. If I'm defaulting on my property taxes, then you're going to go to a property tax sale in a municipality. And again, I think in the bill, the way that's contemplated is you don't owe the full 30 years. You only owe the outstanding debt on the assessment up until the time the sale is transacted. So it's not the full amount, it's whatever you're delinquent on. And then again, you've got to have a buyer who's willing to come in and pick up that assessment on the property and make those payments going forward.
And what if that buyer doesn't want that loan?
You're
Either they don't walk away from the property or.
that is a challenge because there will be some buyers out there that say, yes, I understand I'm going to get the benefits of the energy efficiency going forward, but I don't want $100,000 lien on the property, and therefore I'm not going to buy it. It could weed out some potential buyers for sure.
But sorry, just to follow up on that, if I may, under almost no circumstances will the municipality ever be stuck with that liability because the lender stops getting their payments.
Correct.
And they will take possession of the property, go after,
Correct.
do whatever they do.
Correct.
And if the money stops flowing, the money stays not flowing, it's still up to the lender to find a buyer who's willing to take on that obligation and all those.
Correct. The only thing the municipality is out is if I am not paying my property taxes.
Right.
Separate from the assessment. That's the only thing the municipality is out.
That would happen anyway.
That would happen anyway. And, you know, you hope that there's bidders that show up to the sale. Because you don't want the municipality, by default, if nobody shows up to the sale, they end up owning the property. So that becomes a challenge for the municipalities. That exists today under normal property tax sales circumstances.
So that is a circumstance under which the municipality could become responsible for the C-PACE loan. If the municipality ended up owning the property.
I don't see that because the agreement is not with the municipality. The agreement is with Chris Delia and ABC Company who provided the money. And I think the way this is structured, I don't see anywhere in the bill where the municipality becomes responsible for non-repayment of that assessment.
But doesn't the obligation to repay the assessment travel with the property?
It does, but it's with the, yes, it does. But again, oh boy, that's. It does. Again, the municipality is not part of the contractual relationship, but if no bidders show up, they by default own the property.
I don't think the town has to buy the property and they put it up for tax sale. They can just stop the tax sale if no bidders show up. They don't have to take.
And just leave it sitting
And
out
just
there.
leave it there and conduct a, and I say that from the position of being a former delinquent tax.
Well, the league is coming in next.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, but I get your
So if
concern.
the property transferred, that transfers with it, but if there's no buyer for the property.
And the municipality chooses not to take ownership.
Right. It does,
So
the
there's a way
debt
out
sits
for
there,
them.
the debt sits there, the debt sits there, and whether or not, and under the terms of the contract, it probably continues to accumulate interest.
Well, at that point, the lender would take it over to get their money back.
It is, there are times when a lender, again, I'm only talking property taxes at this point, a lender will step in, they will cure the delinquency on the property tax because they want to preserve their asset, which was used to secure the loan. So yes, that will happen. Whether a PACE administrator chooses to do that or not, I would think they'd want to, because that could be a sizable loan that's out there. And assets that they could potentially recover. So it could be treated, they conceivably could treat it the same as a mortgage. In that sense.
But the value of this PACE loan is only the energy efficiency and resiliency value of the building, of the property. So essentially, somebody said 60, the loan 60%, 20% equity, and maybe 20% of PACE loan. So there's a lot of leverage of bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
Behind
You also have whatever lender's in first position. They're the ones most likely to take
Right.
possession of it, take care of the property taxes, because they're on the hook.
right.
More.
They want to
More the
preserve
money.
their balance of what they. 38 states have this.
Yes, that's my understanding.
It seems highly implausible that town would get stuck with it.
Well, I can tell you that clearly the Senate's intent was that they do not get stuck with it. Senator Hardy worked very hard to make sure that municipalities were, if you will, held harmless because this gets complicated quickly. And she was very concerned about that. And so that is absolutely the intent of the Senate.
Yeah.
How would this assessment, and keep hearing the word assessment and then they go back to appraisal and assessment.
Yeah.
Would it have any effect on grand list value?
Well, I would think so because you're going in, you're making improvements to that property, and investments in that property. I don't know how often that gets looked at in a municipality from the assessment's point of view. But I would see that the assessed value would be increasing based on however they would calculate the new investments that went into that property. So yes, I would see that increasing the grand list.
So it wouldn't be just like a mortgage value, it would be on the improvements to the property. Yeah, thank you.
The value of solar panels don't add to the assessed value of my residential. So I have to pay property taxes on the solar. So.
Well, there's again, assessed value, different than market value.
Right, pray that.
Create rate. And we had a discussion about that in the Senate briefly as well. We've seen significant changes in the appraisal world as far as adoption of values when it comes to these types of investments on the residential side, so that appraisers are accounting for some level of value when they're looking at doing their appraisal work on them.
So you mentioned the R-PACE. We heard from Vita that the main sticking point on that is not being able to sell these into the secondary market.
Correct.
Is there a workaround on that other states have done, or that you can consider, or that?
Now, so in the mortgage world, two options that a financial institution has. One is to do a loan and portfolio, where the bank does not sell it in the secondary market. They keep it in-house. Could be a variety of reasons why they do that. Servicing is directly with the institution. There are others who the model is to provide mortgages out in the marketplace, but the way they recapitalize themselves, the loan pool, is to sell them in the secondary market. The primary buyers are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in the secondary market, and they will not buy a PACE loan if there's, buy a property with a PACE lien on them that is consistent across the country. So the only way a bank would do it if there was a PACE lien on a piece of property is if the bank felt that they wanted to hold it in portfolio. They would not be able to sell it in the secondary market. I'm not aware of any workaround. And I will say that's a contributing factor, but I don't believe that's the primary reason why residential PACE never got off the ground. It's just, we had, I think, 14 roughly municipalities that did it. I could probably count on 4 hands how many loans they've been out there. And my observation over the years when this was trying to get off the ground was this is a very high educational lift for property owners. And what I said earlier, just on the sidebar conversation, the folks in Rutland at NeighborWorks who were holding your hand through the whole process and didn't let you politely off the hook. Did you call the contractor? Did you call this person? Did you file your paperwork? That was the most, in my opinion, successful program in the state because you were being shepherded through the process. Often people left to their own devices. I'll get to it tomorrow. Maybe I'm not that into it. Maybe it's too complicated. I don't want to call 5 contractors. And it never really took. And we're not a unique state in that sense.
Yeah, it's just too much friction.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have either success or fail rate of these programs nationwide? Does it seem to be working or not working?
On the commercial PACE, I personally do not, but I will recall an individual who testified in the Senate that said the delinquency rate was less than 1% on their loan portfolio for commercial PACE activities. So very successful.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy to help.
Yeah,
Great.
appreciate your time.
Good to see you again.
Good seeing you. Thank you.
All right. Josh. Thanks for being here.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, I think you've testified here more
I
than
think
once,
so.
so I don't think we need to all introduce.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'll introduce for the record, Josh
Yeah.
Sanford, Director of Intergovernmental Relations at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And this testimony is going to be pretty brief, as it was in the Senate. The language that passed the Senate, VLCT is supportive of. Mostly because this is a choice towns would get to make, whether they want to enter into commercial pace or not. It's self-executing, they have to decide. We're not judging, whether many communities will take this up or not. We always support new authorizations for municipalities. We believe there's probably only a couple municipalities that probably really would pursue this. And that's great. If it helps a business in those communities and they want to do that, we want to be able to support communities having that option. I think the questions that I've heard in the past about an administrator or who's going to do that, I think that's an open question. VLCT is not in a position at that time to entertain whether we would be in an option or not. I think that it is true that if it's complicated and there's a lot of concerns and there isn't someone to handhold, maybe that may be a challenge for municipalities to debate whether to authorize this or not. But we'll see if maybe someone emerges as playing that third party role. I think I briefly heard about concerns of municipalities maybe holding the bag. I was trying to listen as I came in. Our municipal attorneys reviewed the language and feel that we're protected. There's lots of liability protection in here. If a business, just like residential property or any property, doesn't pay the property taxes, the remedy ultimately is tax sale. If there isn't a lending institution that wants to take that on and foreclose on it, and tax sale is always fraught with challenges. The municipality at that point is only seeking a remedy to capture its delinquent taxes. It's not trying to solve any loans out there or any other debt. It's to recover delinquent taxes. Because the reality as the law is today, when people are delinquent in their taxes, the rest of the taxpayers pay those delinquencies because the municipality is responsible for paying the full property tax, education property tax to the state every year, regardless of if they have delinquencies or not. And that can be a challenge in some communities, with rising property taxes or the recent changes to the municipal property tax sale process from a couple years ago, which really extends that out 2 years in all practical purposes before you can even initiate a tax sale. So, small municipality that's holding on to 10, 20% delinquency can be a financial burden on some smaller towns, and can actually raise the property taxes of other property taxpayers. That's a separate issue than this really, but just I heard some questions, so wanted to mention that. Yeah. So, in general, we support the bill as it was moved from the Senate and with the protections that are there, and happy if a few municipalities have a new authorization they can pursue.
Okay, I have a question. I've asked this question of a bunch of different people, and I just need to keep asking it until I make sure I totally understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just walk me through? So, how I'm envisioning this is that you've got a commercial property owner and a private lender, or VITA or whatever. So you've got a property that wants the loan, and you've got a lender. And so this is a private transaction between them. The municipality is not on the hook for any of the terms of that. But the payment mechanism I'm envisioning instead of how it usually works, where you take out your loan and you pay your lender, we're setting up this municipal pass-through. Basically, that's how I'm picturing it. And I need to keep understanding how that makes the loan much more secure. How that helps, why that's better. And I'm just going to keep asking people until somebody says it in a way that I'm like, yes, I get it. And I may be the only one on the committee who needs to keep hearing this, but I think it's helpful to keep hearing why that is a better and more secure way for this commercial property to pay that private lender.
I can't answer that for you.
But you are the League of Cities and Towns.
Yeah, our concern is the municipalities' ability, authorization to authorize this. My understanding is attaching it to the property taxes and giving 30 years to pay that back might be the only way to capture this sorts of capital investment to make these energy improvements through a more reasonable rate. Maybe lenders wouldn't offer that in those terms, just from a regular commercial loan that doesn't have to involve the property taxes and the assets there. But I am not an expert in these financial transactions in the bank and why a business would get better terms that way. I was around when the residential PACE was first started, and I remember all kinds of efforts to go out in many municipalities adopting that and thinking that was going to be the way to provide energy efficiency work on homeowners. And we know that really didn't pan out and didn't really result in much. I think frankly because there was a lot of other options for folks to do home weatherization improvements. We created other programs and other initiatives, and I am not the genesis of this and sort of which business and which community, and I'm not privy to knowing where this is coming from and why the other programs and other ways to address these energy efficiency measures you want to take can't be accomplished through the existing programs. My sense is it's a very large employer, very large business, and it's very expensive projects, but I don't know that. So I just don't want to comment on why this is the best way to get that work done, because I don't know if it is or isn't.
Okay, that's okay. It's back in my notes.
Yeah.
So I gotta do one second, but I want to ask about a little bit more about the program administrator piece of it. We were talking earlier about the sort of loan origination issues or process, and to what extent that's a burden for municipalities, and whether that is one question I have is that part of the process worth separating from the collection part of the process, which seems like it would be a little bit more straightforward for municipal clerks to handle, because they'll be just getting a check from the property owner that includes both the property taxes and the loan payment for the CPACE loan. And at that point, it's pretty straightforward. You just carve out the amount of those property taxes, keep that in your town coffers, and send a check to, or however it works, to the CPACE lender for the amount that's due on the CPACE loan. But the origination part might be more complicated. So I'm just wondering if you have any more thoughts about that. And especially for smaller towns.
Yeah, I honestly think that smaller towns are probably going to shy away from this.
Unless there's an administrator.
Unless there's an administrator, unless there's a really large, important business that this is a must to support, and they're going to find a way to work and find an administrator, find a bank. But I'd just be guessing about responding to your specific question.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, all I know is, that we're happy to authorize municipalities to take on new authorities, and the liability protections in this bill adequately protect municipalities. And so, we're happy to support it at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
So if a municipality wants to declare a state-based program, do they just say it's everything within the township that border, the town border, or is they make it an industrial park area, or?
Yeah, I think they would have some, leeway there, a district, a clean energy district as it's written, and I understand it, it would probably be conditioned on being in a certain zoning in the town.
Says it's the entire municipality.
Yeah.
It says it's the
Yeah.
entire municipality.
What page, what line?
Page 1, line 15.
Yeah, so they would just.
The zoning would still be in play. I mean, that's,
A commercial energy property sector, clean energy district is the entire municipality. That may be something that towns wrestle with as whether they really want that, to be available for the entire municipality as opposed to this industrial section, of the community. I really haven't.
wouldn't zoning, because these are attached to like commercial
Yeah,
properties. So if somebody's
Think
building
so.
a hotel or
Yeah.
a hospital, I mean, not a
Yeah.
hospital, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If somebody's building a commercial property that would be eligible for CPACE, it doesn't really matter if the whole town's a CPACE district, because that project would still have to happen according to the local zoning, right?
Right.
So it's not like it would overrule zoning and suddenly you'd be building a
Right. No, I
Or
wasn't meaning to.
hotel. Okay,
Thank you.
sure. We're learning so much. All right. Do we have any more questions for Josh?
I'll stick around.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, let's just keep going. Are you okay to just keep going?
Me? Yeah.
Great.
Right.
Perfect. So, hi, I think you have not testified here.
No.
Okay, so we are going to introduce ourselves. I'm Rep. Kathleen James from Manchester.
Richard Bailey, Lamoille 2.
Chris Morrow, Windham, and Bennington. Michael Southworth, Caledonia, too.
Christopher Allen, Rutland Ford.
Yeah, 41.
Graham Klepner, Chittenden, 13 Burlington.
Great, and in the room?
Nick Jarrett, John Strackland Martin.
Bella Scholl, legislative intern for Senator Chittenden.
Great. And Josh just left, so, okay. Hi.
Well, I am Megan Sullivan, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Vermont Chamber of Commerce, and I am very excited to be here. I was just testifying across the hall on economic development, and then coming over here, talking about economic development. It's sort of like Chamber Christmas Day for us. And appreciate being able to come in and talk about CPACE. I know you've sort of been digging into the details of how this works, and I will be upfront where I'm going to be talking about sort of big picture why we're excited about this as a new potential economic development tool in Vermont's toolbox. You all had an emergency hearing, I think in October, about what was going on with federal funds for energy, and not great for our efficiency projects that are happening in Vermont. And I was there, I heard a number of organizations testify about the scale back of federal funding for efficiency projects in the state. We've seen what's going on with FEMA funds in the state, and the ability to have tools for commercial, industrial, large scale housing. And when I say large scale, I mean more than 5 units of housing, to be able to do this critically important work of energy efficiency, of renewable energy, of resiliency, is really important if we have less now reliance, ability to access those federal funds that help offset the cost. And CPACE is one way that states have done that. I think there's about 38 other states that have CPACE programming that Vermont would be joining in, right? We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're not breaking ground. This is really providing access to a tool that other states have already implemented and gotten right. And so, for us, part of this is really about that financing gap that I think has widened with the loss of federal funding for efficiency projects, to still see our business community, and our housing community be able to do this important work, both for our climate and honestly for their bottom line for the cost, right? Energy has been getting more expensive in Vermont. We do have some of the lower costs in New England, but the rates are continuing to increase. And so businesses are trying to think about, how do I be both a good environmental steward, but also how do I continue to compete with my operating costs? So this really hits at both of those places. Part of what brings us to this is Vermont's economic action plan that the Vermont Future Project put out, which I sent to Alex, so it should be on your dashboard of what that economic action plan is. And so it looks at where, how Vermont's economy is doing and where do we need to go to continue to grow our economy in a way that supports all Vermonters, access to capital, and continuing to invest in energy efficiency are two of the priorities in the economic action plan. So this aligns well with that. Okay. I know you've gotten some sort of how CPACE works, so I can skip going into that if you're feeling good about it. But let me talk about how other states, some projects, sort of so you can visualize how are other states using CPACE. So other states have used it on small scale businesses, larger scale, large redevelopment, industrial project, and housing projects. So one example is in Good Thunder, which is like my new favorite county, Minnesota. There was a thrift store that utilized CPACE in that town to finance LED lighting, and that generated meaningful energy savings for them, and a strong return over time. In Worthington, Minnesota, there was lighting and HVAC upgrades that were used through CPACE financing, those long-term savings. So it has been used in states that have long established programs in these smaller projects to help those smaller businesses. Maybe it's not the same scale, but it's that same meaningful return. And I think to your question of, why CPACE, why does it go onto the property tax? Those upgrades live with the building. And they can have a good return, but that return takes a longer time to realize. And so financing in a way that lives with the property taxes, allows for a longer term investment, the investment that runs the life of that upgrade, and attach it to property rather than to a traditional loan to the owner, so that even if that property sells, the property is still seeing the benefits of that investment, and having the financing live with the property is a way to make this accessible.
I might be making a connection. So so the property tax mechanism is at the very bottom line, a very practical way to attach the loan to the building.
Yes.
Not to the
buyer, not to the owner, right?
For example.
Has there been any instance or complaint about the CPACE assessment being a hindrance for resale of a property?
I haven't heard of cases where folks have said that. I will say, I think our PACE in Vermont, the residential version of this, has not taken off. And I think it is more, right? You don't have the complex financing tools in a single family home or a duplex that you have in commercial properties. Those purchases tend to be more complex when you're talking about whether it's you're buying a downtown commercial property, or you're buying an industrial building, or you're renovating a hotel, that those tend to be fairly complex financing products anyways. So I think you have a little bit more maturity in that development community that's not really as much of a challenge as it is when you're talking about residential there's lien on a
Would
property.
it make sense to have a carve out in the event of a sale that they can do a prepayment without penalty?
I would talk to C-based financiers about sort of that technical piece. So that was my small business. In Omaha, Nebraska, there was a $205 million mixed-use downtown redevelopment project that incorporated $25 million in CPACE financing for energy upgrades, and that was for mixed development, so it was residential, a hotel, and retail space. In New Haven, Connecticut, Hotel Marcel, which I really want to see now, was the first net zero hotel. And it had been like an office building before then. That CPACE was a critical piece of the financing tool for an all-electric system and high-performance design building. And then YMCA, also in Connecticut, which has a strong CPACE, used it for lighting upgrades. So it's, it can hit, there's a lot of different uses, whether it's, a nonprofit organization, small business, a large redevelopment, or a large business. And I think importantly, when we think, residential place, that's probably getting to our larger housing. It's not, because residential is under 4 units. So this is also something that can be really helpful. While we have, sort of energy standards that our affordable housing folks are trying to reach, having this additional financing tool is important. I think importantly, it's not mandated, right? The towns don't have to offer this. A business doesn't have to use this. These are options. These are potential tools in the toolbox. And from our perspective, the more tools that we have to be able to think creatively about how to get projects done, how to reduce the cost of energy, how to increase resiliency, is great. And so if we can find the right balance of making sure that towns aren't putting themselves at risk, and that this is something that our communities can access, it's a pretty exciting opportunity. I don't know, how many new economic development tools we've added to the toolbox in recent years, and certainly in challenging economic times. That's even, yes. But that is housing focused.
True.
At this point, maybe it could grow to be economic development focused as well. And housing is big for economic development right now. But that type of financing that doesn't say we're going to invest taxpayer dollars is exactly where I think is a sweet spot for the state right now. So we're really excited about the opportunity for this. We've heard from members that are excited about the opportunity for this. There is one tweak that we'd love to see, and I think others may have also brought it up, and it's about the 90% of the property's municipal assessed value. If it's a piece of land, that assessed value is, next to nothing. It really needs to be on the completed project. And so we have language that we can offer if that's needed, but others may have already.
H5 line 15.
Yeah, the 90%. So it keeps, changing that. It keeps the guardrails on, but just, I think, meets the intent of what that financing percentage is supposed to be. And I think that's how California, New York, and Connecticut all do it as well.
I'm wondering whether it would be interesting for us to hear from another state that's like deep into this.
Sure.
So we had testimony yesterday from the CPACE Alliance, and I'm sure they could tell us whether we should talk to Connecticut or Minnesota or
Good Thunder.
well,
I would just like to.
Yeah, a state that has some smaller communities.
Yeah.
Would be cool.
Yeah, I think it is. There are states that are working, that it does work well for those, smaller communities. It's not just Chicago and New York that are doing this.
Yeah,
I'm not sure our towns without any municipal staff may not be ready for it, but we've got lots of those.
Yeah, I'm actually putting together. I'm having a memory in real time. You did the study.
Yes, I did.
So we, we posted it as public comment. But, Senator Chittenden's intern, I'm sorry, I'm having a moment on your name.
Bella Scholl.
Yeah, for the Vermont Legislative, Research Service did a report on this that looked at other states. And so I don't want to put you on the spot,
Feel free.
but maybe we could, we have time now. Do you want to testify and talk about your report, or is that totally inappropriate and you're not prepared for that and you want us to book you?
I wouldn't have any prepared remarks, but I've been following the bill closely. I'd be happy to speak on the research that we've done. And
Do you want more time to prep, and we'll formally put you on the agenda with a little time to prepare, or do you want to hop on right now? Totally doesn't matter to us.
Maybe a little time to prepare
Yeah.
would be nice.
Great.
I'm sure I can be nice and polished for you guys. I appreciate the
You don't have to be polished, but yeah, I'm sorry, I was spaced for a minute. So great. So we will be doing that. Yeah,
So if this gets passed and you have a commercial entity in a town that sees there's a potential, does that business owner need to go to the municipality and say, I want to get into this program and you need to assign us as a district?
Yes, I think, most likely, especially at the start of this, we're going to be seeing this be probably project led, where they'll go to they're most likely talking to the municipality anyways about designs and permitting and zoning and for those projects that already have a relationship. So this would probably be another conversation of this would be a helpful tool. The state just created this program. We'd love for you all to create a district, and we can, help find those relationships, and it'll be up to the town whether or not they move forward on that. And then it, hopefully we'll get to a point where, once a town has it established, that's now a municipality's tool in the toolbox as they're trying to do
Recruit
redevelopment
businesses.
projects, recruit businesses, right? That it's one more, it's sort of like CHIP, where you can say, like, we've got this and we've got this we can offer, if let's come together so we can get something done here.
yeah. I know they're very different, but the more testimony we take, the more obvious it seems why our case never took off. Like,
Yeah.
if I want to put solar panels on my garage, I'm not going to approach my municipality and ask them to establish an RPACE district. I don't know. You can just, you can see why it was just too complex for what it was.
Too complex for a much
For the
simpler.
scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like these projects, you're
These are bigger
much more
deals.
likely to have those complicated financing mechanisms anyways, and developers that are used to using them. And I do think, saying that there is that, we've seen it move into the small business territory, and that's, you're still having that commercial real estate owner who may be putting it in place for their first door tenant or whoever the tenant is, that it's, helps keep them downtown and do those redevelopment projects that can be more expensive than doing a greenfield project, frankly. And so I think our towns, especially if we can help incentivize those, how do we keep investing in our downtowns, investing in our economic hubs? That's really helpful.
One of the things we've been asking folks about is the third-party administrator.
Mhm.
Do you have any thoughts about that, especially for smaller towns? The need for that?
I mean, I think it's important to have that expertise, and as much as we can help our small towns with capacity building, it's great. And again, I think, the league weighed in on making sure there's the appropriate guardrails, right? So that we don't have communities that are taken advantage of in doing these. But having that third party administrator is important for equitable access of economic development funds.
Which kind of comes up with CHIP too.
Yeah.
For smaller towns, and I'm just wondering if there's maybe some synergy there, like, would there be a role with our regional economic development corps to have some sort of enhanced support for smaller towns for both of these things?
As an administrator of that, maybe, I don't know if they have the expertise or what.
Is that somebody we might want to hear from as or regional economic development person? Sure.
Seems like some of these the PACE lenders are also administrators. They have all the expertise in software and
Yeah,
Yeah,
although we might have
hire
to
a third
tweak,
party.
tweak this language to have the disinterested one. Be possible.
I don't understand why that. I'm not hearing the ox guarding the hen house argument so much, but
They're overseeing the money they run.
Which they, through the
well,
view with
they
a
should,
Hawkeye anyway.
right? Like they're overseeing the origination and the underwriting as they should. And they're making sure they get their payments as they should.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Making sure the paperwork's right, which
Mhm.
they do anyway. Yeah. From my point of view, it's not a concern having a lender
Yeah.
also be the administrator. I mean, they, as Rep. Allen pointed out, if you go get a loan, the bank administers that loan until they sell it. They don't know how to do it.
Or they service it after they sell it,
Yeah,
It's their money.
continue to service it.
that's right.
I guess that's the term they use, service the loan. And you get a fee for that.
I think it probably stems again from the R base, right? If, someone showing up at your house and saying, we're gonna put solar on your roof and I got this great way to finance it and I'll work with your town, being sort of.
That's, yeah,
Again,
that's actually a
doesn't-
good
Yeah.
point. Like maybe that's where it originated
Right.
from, but I see a huge difference between a homeowner, and their level of expertise and like a commercial developer.
Yeah.
Applying for a commercial loan. I would certainly expect they would have a different level of savvy in putting together their funding stack.
So maybe we ought to be separating the R pace and C pace within that bill and not touch the R pace any further.
Yeah, I don't feel like we should be fiddling with our pace. I'm trying to remember now which sections of the bill to try to tweak our pace, but to me, these are so different. I'd have to look back at my walkthrough notes and see which sections even deal with our pace. And whether we're accomplishing anything meaningful there anyway. Yeah, Rafaela.
So is it gonna be difficult for the towns to create these districts? Is it just a governing body or is it gonna go with the town or municipal town, at the city like vote? Or
Has to go through both.
Just a legislative body, just a select board or.
Yeah,
just
Or the
like-
legislative body.
Yes.
Duly warning.
majority of the legislative body at a duly warned meeting. So the select board.
I don't think S-138 touches our pace.
It does. Yeah, there's the chapter 2 references. They're all our pace.
Subchapter, I mean, it creates a new subchapter.
That's all our pace amending.
Well, we're putting it in, so we're creating a whole new section of statute. I'm sorry, do you mind hanging out?
I'm here, yeah.
Now we're being our committee. But it, as I remember it, so in the broad section of law that sets up our pace, we're creating a whole new section that creates CPACE.
Yeah.
So that is where it should go. It seems like it has to be in that. It feels like it has to be in 24 VSA chapter 87. But I feel like Mike is right that there were
pieces that intermingled and it amended the definition of our pace or amended the statute. Then section 2, 3263.
What page are you on?
Page 8. The note where the added language is amending our pace. The municipality may charge fees to cover operation of C space, so it's amending our pace is what Ellen had told us.
to add sea-based.
Correct.
So I guess we need to find out whether that's important to keep in there to enable sea-based somehow. Okay. More questions for Megan? All right.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much. Thank you for being here. So we're actually done for the,
No,
no, we're not. We have 11 testimony. All right, we can go off live. We'll be back at 11:30.